So do not chase the myth of being able to complete the syllabus in its entirety. See, it does not matter how much knowledge you have with you in the exam hall. It all boils down to how much you are able to reproduce on the paper. It is better to, discover that you are very bad at giving tests in the mocks than going to the mains exam and finding that out 1 year after you have. They are simulation tools. Go through that simulation over and over again. I would also strongly advise you to go for these all India mock tests. Sometimes तो मतलब I find that they are free. मतलब मेंस में बार बार मार्क्स नहीं आ रहे हैं लेकिन वही सोर्स पढ़े जा रहे हैं और वही गलती बार बार किए जा रहे हैं. Don't have this thing in your mind or be in this illusion that you have infinite time and that you will get done with everything. That is never going to be possible. When you make a decision of studying something, there is something else that you will always be excluding from that perspective, right? And that is perfectly normal. That is how life works. If I decide to do 10 things, I'll not be able to do anything at all. I don't know if everybody knows this or not. If you fail in your language paper in mains, your other 8 papers are thrown into the dustbin. Like they are not even checked. I went to give the exam on the first day. On that day itself, somebody just beat me by 41 marks. Now, all the 8 papers that I'm giving after that is just trying to cover that gap. Think of that disparity in marks that has been created by one paper. मुझे उसने 40 marks से पहले दिन पे ही हरा दिया. This thing of performing well on the examination day, I feel is the most important thing ever. In fact, I know people who are not prepared well, but just exam के दिन पे दिमाग सही जगह पे था, confidence था, went and performed and just excelled.
We can start. Here's the thing. UPSC is a strange game. And what I mean by it is, right, it demands almost everything from you. Your attention, time, focus, energy, but it almost guarantees nothing in the return. Except if you get your name in the list, and in that case, you have a massively non-linear reward. You have your name in the list, you'll get in the service, right? In exams like this, there's a lot of things that we hear, things like there's no one strategy. Everyone will have to find some bits and pieces from here and there and come up with their own personal strategy. My journey is unique. What works for me is different from the generalized thing that we keep hearing from any sources, credible or not. There's no one playbook, there's no one strategy, etc. Right? While there is some truth in that, at the same time, you can find a lot of strategy here and there, but at the same times, there are some fundamental things, some fundamental truth which stay the same every single year. They have not changed since the beginning of the exam. It just stays the same. This is true for anything else or any other exam that you might face, right? Those fundamental truths is what this session is about. This session is about those 10 reasons, some truths which stay the same no matter anything else that changes, right? These truths comes from the real failure points from the serious aspirants, which have strategies, content, and mentorship. Even then, they fail problems in this exam to cross the line, etc. Right? And the session is about making sure that you don't make a mistake if you're a beginner or a working professional, or if this is going to be your second attempt, third attempt. This is the time to stop, reflect, and in all this fast-paced preparation, at the receiving end of all the content and advice and everything, these 40 minutes is when you stop and ask a very basic fundamental question about your preparation. And who better than rank 3 talking about it, right? So we have Archit here today. He has gone through the journey. He improved his rank from IPS to IS this year, and he is here to talk about these fundamental truths. At the end, we will do some exercise with me where I guarantee you will walk away with something which is going to change the way you prepare or look at your preparation until you qualify the exam, right? So stick till the end, follow the things, listen very carefully, drop your question in the chat for next 30-40 minutes, do away with all the distraction. Archit, we can start.
So very good evening to all the participants and thanks Prayas for the introduction. So basically this session is, like he mentioned, was more oriented towards the people who have given multiple attempts, who are beginning with the preparation and who are working professionals, in the sense that we have identified around 10 areas where I feel people get stuck generally in this preparation. And with the help of mentorship as well, they are somehow not able to break that barrier. This could be anything starting from not being able to stay consistent with the preparation to not being able to understand why you are not able to score high marks, which you think that you should get in proportion to the amount of time or hard work you're putting in, right? So based on a lot of experiences, like I have stayed in Old Rajendra Nagar for 2 years throughout my preparation. I have seen a lot of people prepare as well. I have a lot of friends who are still preparing. I have people in my academy who I know. So with a lot of these people that I've met, their experiences, a lot of personal anecdotes, we've come down to these 10 reasons why aspirants with strategic content and mentorship still fail at the UPSC exam. And we will sort of try to figure out how we can go about these things, and you can, in your own capacity, avoid these pitfalls, right? So we can take the first point that we have identified is the avoidance of mock tests. So the thing is that with your syllabus, there is going to be a lot of content going around in the market, and year on year, it is just going to keep increasing, right? So do not chase the myth of being able to complete the syllabus in its entirety. That is something that I think is not going to be possible. You will never be 100% ready with the syllabus. You can cover all the points given in the UPSC notification, but then the depth is endless. Like you can go to whatever depth you want to, you can do PhDs on a single topic. So focusing on mocks is going to be very important to being able to judge yourself whether you are going to be able to deliver in the real exam. It does not matter how much knowledge you have with you in the exam hall. It all boils down to how much you are able to reproduce on the paper. So, because in front of the examiner, you are not going to be able to give your bio data. It is going to be your simple answer sheet or your OMR sheet, which is going to give him an idea whether you know the thing or not. So, how do you practice what you are supposed to do in the mains exam, which is delivering content, is by giving mocks, right? So completing your prep and मैं पढ़ लूंगा, फिर मैं जब अच्छा मुझे लगेगा कि मेरा रिवीजन हो गया है सब, तभी मैं मॉक दूंगा. That is not what you should be looking at. In fact, when I was preparing, my mock tests used to not be aligned with my revisions at all. Like that is something I should take care. कि अगर इस वीक मैं पॉलिटी पढ़ रहा हूँ तो पॉलिटी पढ़ने के बाद पॉलिटी का टेस्ट देने में it's not a big thing. You will obviously get all the questions right. Like that is not something that you should be doing. But if I have prepared modern history 2 weeks before that, then I'm giving the test of modern history in the week that I've studied polity. That is going to be the true test of whether I'm able to recall what I've studied or not, right? So that is somehow you have to overcome that fear of not being able to score high marks. It is better to discover that you are very bad at giving tests in the mocks than going to the mains exam and finding that out 1 year after you have invested a year, right? So avoid that pitfall in its entirety, right? So why this fails as it's written here is there is no real-time decision-making skill which you will not develop unless you give mocks. This is especially true for the prelims exam. In the prelims exam, you will have to give a lot of guessworks, right? You'll have to think through the question, look at what is written between the lines, speculate what the examiner is thinking, reject extreme keywords, focus on data fact. So all these things are not discovered somehow in the real exam. These are done countless times when you give your mocks. You analyze a trend कि okay, अच्छा मैं जब guess मारता हूँ तो 90% times I am end up with the right answer, or I should not guess at all क्योंकि मेरा guess work बहुत poor है. तो how will you discover these things? This is when you do it in a mock paper, right? This is when you read those questions. अभी मेरे से मैंने sectional test दिया पॉलिटी का और उसमें मेरे 40 नंबर आ रहे हैं, तो दैट इज अ ग्लेरिंग इंडिकेटर की पॉलिटी बहुत अच्छे से नहीं हुआ है. You have to revise polity. How will you know whether you're good at a subject or not? So mocks, it'll tell your weaknesses, it will prepare you for the real exam, and then in that high stress environment, which is going to be the mains exam or the prelims exam for in your case, content देना है. There is no ifs and buts there. Don't come out of the exam hall saying कि मैं वहां पे blank out हो गया. Nobody is going to have sympathy for you and nobody has time to listen to that. ठीक है. So do all that thing and do all that blanking out and all those paper incomplete रह गया, ये सब mock test में कर लेना, so that you know that in the real paper you have one shot so that you're able to deliver that content, right? And that obviously that elimination technique वाला जो है वो skill है. You have to do it over and over again. बार बार practice करोगे exam environment में, तो you will develop that skill of eliminating incorrect options, right? So as the insight goes, कि it's a mirror. जैसे मैंने बोला, तीन चीजें हैं: आपके वीक एरियाज, आपको एग्जाम के लिए प्रैक्टिस करवाना, और उस एनवायरनमेंट में डिलीवर करना कंटेंट, बिकॉज देर इज गोइंग टू बी नोबडी टू यू नो put their hand on your head and tell you कि it's all going to be all right, it's okay. ऐसा नहीं होगा. So you have invested a year, time is going to be very important for you. So make sure that when you go to the mains exam or the prelims exam, you are at the peak of your game. And investing time in mock tests, I think, is a very good way to do that, right? So that is the lesson. They are simulation tools. Go through that simulation over and over again. I would also strongly advise you to go for these all India mock tests. Sometimes तो मतलब I find that they are free most of the times. तो फ्री में रजिस्ट्रेशन हो जाता है. Go to the center, go write their papers, and then you will sort of get an idea कि what is the real game, right? तो इस तरीके से first rule that and first thing that we should keep in mind is perfection is a myth. Syllabus will never be complete. We have to give mocks, and we have to judge ourselves and improve ourselves based on mocks, right? So we'll come to the other second part. Just next, yeah. So this is one of the most important things. Once now, let's say that you have sense and now you have understood कि अच्छा मुझे mocks देने हैं. आपने फिर mocks देना start कर दिया. अब आप mocks लगाए जा रहे हो, लेकिन what what is really important here? You have to understand that your weak areas जो है वो जो आपको identify करना है, आपको practice करनी है, right? तो the main part of the mock is, one part is that you give the mock to discover कि अच्छा एग्जाम देते कैसे हैं. उसके बाद जो आपने गलतियां की है, you have to learn from them as well, right? Because that is something that you want to avoid in the future. So not taking your post-test discussion seriously and making the same mistakes again and again is one of the main reasons that people fail. And like, believe me, that this seems very obvious, but I've seen people doing the same thing over and over again. मतलब मेंस में बार बार मार्क्स नहीं आ रहे हैं, लेकिन वही सोर्स पढ़े जा रहे हैं और वही गलती बार बार किए जा रहे हैं. इनफैक्ट आई वाज कॉल्ड अप बाय वन ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स दीज डेज, जो अभी मेंस देने वाले हैं. एंड ही वाज लाइक कि मेरे 2 अटेम्प्ट से 2 साल से मेरे मेंस में मार्क्स ऑप्शनल में 250 है, 240 ही है. देन आई आस्क्ड हिम कि तुमने लास्ट टाइम से इस बार अलग क्या किया है. एंड इज लाइक कि मैं वही कर रहा हूँ, मेरा सिलेबस भी वही बच रहा है. आई वाज लाइक what are you trying to achieve? Like, if anybody has played that video game Far Cry, उसमें वास करके कैरेक्टर है Far Cry 3 में. He says what is the definition of insanity? It is doing the same thing over and over again, and this finding out and expecting different outcomes. So like, that is not going to be possible. Okay, you have to make changes. There has to be something from your side also, that you invest and you do, and then you reasonably can expect a positive return. So taking your post test discussion seriously is going to be very important, because आपने जो गलती की है, whatever mistakes you have made in your prelims MCQs, or one dimension that you have not covered in your mains, for example, papers, that is going to be important for you to analyze and understand कि अच्छा ये हुई है गलती. And I would also strongly suggest keep a notebook, or if you have a board in front of you, pin a paper of your A4 sheet paper, and write on the top of that कि अच्छा ये mistake I make, and I have to analyze this and I have to make it correct. For example, uh, in my optional paper, whenever there was a question on a philosopher, I used to consistently make this mistake where I would always forget to write the criticism. मैं हमेशा पॉइंट्स कवर कर देता था सारे जो क्वेश्चन में दिए हुए हैं, बट फ्रॉम माय एंड, इन माय ऑप्शन, इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड दैट यू राइट अ क्रिटिसिज्म. So I wrote on in front of me on my desk कि always forgetting to write criticism. Please make sure you write criticism in every answer. अब मैं रोज सुबह आई एम गोइंग एंड सिटिंग ऑन माय डेस्क, आई एम सीइंग दैट थिंग, इट इज इनग्रेन्ड इन मी कि ओके, आई मेक दैट मिस्टेक, आई हैव टू अवॉइड डूइंग दैट, राइट? So once you make a set of goals in front of you, you write what you have to change and make better. That ways you will be much better off in dealing with these mistakes when it comes to the real paper, right? And post test discussions are also important in the sense कि आपको revision में बहुत help करेगा वो, right? For prelims, especially when you make these mistakes in your simple MCQs, for example, कि कौन सी committee is coming under which body is coming under which ministry, or ये article which is representing some fundamental right. So these things are something that are a gap in your revisions. So you know कि okay, what do I have to revise as well? So when you plan your revision sessions, you know what to do first or what not to do first. Otherwise, you will be confused as to what to start revising first or not. So you have to prepare alongside the revisions. Your revisions, mock test, and preparation should, all three things should be going side by side. So how do you plan that is based on the feedback that you get from these tests. If I'm giving a modern history test और उसमें मेरे बहुत खराब नंबर आ रहे हैं, तो the next thing that is in my mind is कि भाई modern history का revision session लगना चाहिए अगला. So I know that okay, it should be revised before it's too late or before I lose the track of my preparation, right? And other thing that I can mention here, it's not given, but there is a positive angle as well. See, you will be preparing endlessly, but once in your post-test discussions and your mock tests that you start getting good results also. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि you're always getting bad marks. You will be getting good marks also when you start, filling those lacunas and you start revising timely. Your marks will be going upwards. That will give you some kind of confidence. अंदर से you will feel good, you will feel confident, you're on the right track, and then you will be on the D day of the paper. Any kind of self doubt or apprehensions will not be there, and I think that is one of the a very big pillar of performing well in the exam is having belief in yourself, and that can only come from logical facts. You cannot fool yourself. Once you know, okay, I get good marks, I've gone through the post-test discussions, I have filled all the mistakes that I make, I have corrected them, then I don't think there is any reason for anxiety in the paper. Then it's just all on your hard work and your luck, right? So at the end of the day, by just giving mock tests but not focusing on what went wrong, that is going to be a very ill thought out strategy, right? So make sure that you uh, keep revision, giving the mock test, and then finally focusing on what you should correct also. These three things should be part of one package. This should be your whole process. This should be the SOP of going through your preparation. So I would like, if you have to summarize this, then I would be like, if you wanted to prepare a particular aspect, uska source book padho, revision karo, us pe test do, and then go through the key of that test or analyze those mistakes that you have done and then correct them. And that is the end-to-end procedure of how you should prepare a topic or a thing or for an exam. That is the way to prepare for it, right? So feedback, corrections, and all these are important parts of the process. And make sure that you don't just give tests because practice karni thi, but you also analyze that, right? So we'll move ahead with the third part. Yeah. So taking gyan from multiple sources because of FOMO and then uh, and not sticking with what the mentor is saying. They have multiple advisors, right? Okay, now this is something that I'd like to mention. Uh, See, there is going to be as many advices as there are going to be toppers, right? Everybody has their own way of doing things. There is a personal touch to everything. It's necessary that you have to sort of go out there and find somebody who suits your palate and your mental framework to come to the right kind of advice. But then again, uh, don't get sucked up into this myriad of advices and sources out there. Okay, you have everybody has 24 hours in a day, and everybody has to focus on something. Interestingly enough, I'm reading this book right now. It's called 4,000 Weeks. In that, the author gives a very interesting insight. It's like any time that you decide to do something, you naturally, as a part of the process, have to forego something else. There is always going to be an opportunity cost. So if I have 2 months to study modern history and then I pick up, let's say, Spectrum, then it is at that point of time it is decided that you will not be studying Bipin Chandra, right? Don't don't have this thing in your mind or be in this illusion that you have infinite time and that you will get done with everything. That is never going to be possible. When you make a decision of studying something, there is something else that you will always be excluding from that perspective, right? And that is perfectly normal. That is how life works. If I decide to do 10 things, I'll not be able to do anything at all. So focus on limited resources and then try to extract multiple insights and knowledge from that as a key strategy. So multiple limited sources and multiple revisions, I think, is the way of going for this paper. Other than that, you will get n number of advice from the prelim stage right up till the interview stage. There will be hundreds of people telling you hundreds of things. For example, in the personality test, I was told multiple times, keep your hands on your knees. Somebody then corrected me, is like, why are you keeping your hands on your knees? Keep your hands in a natural manner so it feels as if you're being very natural. Somebody told me to smile. Somebody told me not to smile because it's a serious affair. So there is going to be n number of advice. I would suggest do what you think is right and then pair it with something that gives you realistically um, gives you something, some message that you're on the right track. Now, for you, that is going to be mock tests. So when you follow a source, when you follow somebody's advice, if it is resulting in higher marks for you in any exam, any mock test, then that is going to be the right advice for you. Okay. Other than that, following multiple sources and other advices from people, and be very careful who you take your advice from. Like, ideally, you should be taking advice from somebody who has done the process and has been successful. Because if you go to ORN, then at every tea stall there will be somebody there to tell you something new or some new source. So अभी कितने कितने लोगों का आप सुनोगे, right? And that is not somebody that you should be following in the first place. So be careful who you listen to, be careful who you take advice from, keep limited sources and take multiple revisions, right? And then again, clarity comes from trusting one system long enough to make it your own. Like I mentioned from the book 4000 Weeks, you have to choose something, and by by virtue of making a choice, you'll always be excluding some other things. So don't worry about that too much, right? And have faith in the process that whatever you're studying, you're going to get maximum benefit out of it. That being said, I'm not saying that just study NCRTs and go to the paper. You have to have a level of knowledge. You have to have a level of preparation. Have a few standard books that you satisfy your exam requirements with, but then don't overdo it, because there is going to be limited amount of time, and that time is same for everybody. You have to cover a syllabus, and you have to reach a certain standard of delivering content. So keeping these things in mind, don't go after everything that is there in the market, right? So we'll move on to the next thing that I think was very important from the last past few years, which is taking CSAT for granted, right? Uh, so generally, people have this tendency of taking a qualifying paper very lightly. This is CSAT in its place is obviously being this now big demon that is scaring everybody else. But any other qualifying paper of that for that matter also, you must take seriously, which is also include your language paper in your mains exam. I have studied for the language paper as well for an hour daily, because my Hindi writing skills were not that good. And I'm not very comfortable in writing in my mother tongue, which is Marathi. Okay. So I had to go through the previous year question papers of Hindi as well, look at those muhavre, look at those patit gadyansh, and practice a few nibandhs so that I could at least qualify that paper, because you have to have around 75 marks in that as well. And I don't know if everybody knows this or not. If you fail in your language paper in mains, your other eight papers are thrown in the dustbin, like they are not even checked. So if you fail in that paper, you'll not be even evaluated on other subjects. So you won't have a idea also of how you have done in your GS or your optionals. So be sure that you will qualify that paper. Look at a few PYQs and ensure that you are qualifying that paper with ease. Now, coming to CSAT, this paper has failed a lot of people coming from different backgrounds. It's not as if just humanities people from humanities are having this problem. It is true for engineers as well. And I will explain to you why is that, because this is an aptitude paper. People have this wrong notion that engineers are good at math. That math is sort of theoretical in nature. This is an aptitude paper which kind of requires you to develop some kind of tips or like tricks in the real examination. Okay, so you have to count a number of cases. So it's not true as if that if you're an engineer, CSAT is going to be a cakewalk for you. You have to have that knack of cracking those questions in a very small amount of time. Okay, so be sure that you are practicing CSAT from your end as well. And how do you ensure that you qualify the CSAT paper, which is like it is true for everything else in the UPSC preparation? You have to have a lot of practice. Now, I don't think that this paper, being qualifying in nature, requires you to give extensive amounts of time for this preparation. I think between this period from Jan to May, which is essentially your prelims preparation, you should give around 2 hours every day at the fag end of the day for your CSAT, so that you are in a position to practice questions and deliver the required amount of performance on the D day. Also, you should be giving a lot of mock tests for CSAT and figuring out what areas you are poor in. For a lot of people, it is generally aptitude and your mathematics, which you should be practicing well in advance, because it is not something that is built in a day. Also, you can definitely build your aptitude. It is possible. And I have surely seen people who have. I have friends who have failed CSAT for 4 years consecutively, and this time they have scored above 100 marks. So it is definitely possible to build aptitude, contrary to the belief, right? So, and we have definitely seen people who have scored very high marks in mathematics, people with mathematics optional also, they have sometimes not been able to qualify CSAT. So ensure that you give a good amount of time to CSAT. Be sure that you have practiced enough mock tests. So you have built a confidence that, okay, I'm able to score 100 plus marks and then I'll be able to deliver in the paper as well. Other than that, your approach in the paper on that particular day is the other 40% that you should be taking care of, because sometimes the paper can come unpredictable. You should be having the uh, confidence, and you should be calm enough to be able to skip maths and go to English, or skip English and go to math, depending on how they have set the paper. So that is some kind of sense of presence of mind, right, that has to be developed. And again, that is going to be possible when you give enough number of mock tests to be very comfortable in your own skin in the real examination, right? So don't neglect CSAT, and ensure that you prepare for this paper. Okay. So the next reason that I feel people don't qualify UPSC is that they don't have a very clear idea about the benchmarks you need to touch. With respect to mains, merely completing the paper is no longer enough, and prelims, your issue of having sufficient depth. So I remember very clearly that when I started UPSC in the 2022 attempt, I was told enough number of times, and I had seen a lot of these topper interviews as well, कि यार mains तो paper complete कर लो, and then that is 50% of the battle won. Uh, when I gave my mains for the first time in 2023, when I had got 153 rank, I came outside my center, and मैंने सभी मतलब जितने भी लोग मुझे मिले थे वहां पे, दोस्त काफी बन गए थे over a period of 10 days. Every single person had completed the paper. So it's not as if you just know that you have to complete the paper. Everybody knows that they have to complete the paper. Paper बहुत कम लोग छोड़ते हैं, to be very honest. So that is not going to be enough. At least nowadays, I don't find many people who skip the paper, or if there are people, they miss at least just one or two questions. Okay. So you have to complete the paper, which is obviously true, but then there is a level of knowledge and level of content quality that has to be ensured in the mains paper, right? So again, people are very divided on what is a good answer and what is not a good answer. So let me set the record straight. How do you decide what should be a good benchmark? So there are only two ways of communicating with the Union Public Service Commission. One is you go through the PYQs, so that you know if you are able to answer those questions with ease, if you have sufficient amount of points to deliver content on those questions, your benchmark for at least having the content in place is reached. Coming to the other part, which is the other 50% of the mains examination, which is giving your content on paper. How do you know that you have reached a good benchmark in that answer writing? Again, the way to do that is two things. Firstly, you give a lot of mock tests. Let these coaching companies analyze your paper. If they find your paper to be above 100 marks, we can sufficiently come to the conclusion that okay, the paper has some level of sophistication. Secondly, why don't you compare your paper with topper copies? Because I feel somebody who has got a rank, he must be doing something right in the eyes of the Union Public Service Commission. If you are able to match your content that you have delivered in your answers up in some manner with the topper copies, then also you can be sure that you are delivering content up to a particular level, right? So mock tests to judge you, comparing with the topper copies, and then being able to answer the previous year questions. These three things are the benchmarks that you can set to regulate yourself whether you are up to date with the content and the answer writing as well. With prelims also, you have to do this. There is no answer writing, so there is going to be no proper copy. But then you have to be able to answer the previous year question papers of the prelims examination as well, and be sure that you are getting somewhere around 130 to 140 marks in that paper. I'm saying 130 to 140 marks in that paper because you have studied the resource books, which have already been updated for the questions that have been asked in the previous years. So even if with that you're not able to score some above 130 140 marks, that means your preparation is not up to the mark, right? You have to study harder and you have to revise the content. So in previous year question papers of the UPSC examination, you have to score around 140 to 150 marks period. Other than that, for the other test series that you give, I think a good benchmark to judge yourself in the prelims papers is to score above 100 marks. If you are consistently getting 100, 95 to 100, and 110 above marks, then that is, I think, a good benchmark that you have reached, that you can qualify the prelims examination of that year. So these are the benchmarks that I think that you should be setting for yourself. Also, uh, don't, like I said, don't go behind giving a lot of mocks in quantity. The quality is much more important, and that will automatically be ensured if you are doing the second thing that I mentioned, which is the post test discussions and focusing on the keys of this paper. If you ensure that, you will, if you are a serious enough aspirant, you will realize that around 4 to 5 hours are spent in reading the key of a paper, because you will be highlighting the things that you are reading, you will be revising those things again and again. It will take your day off, right? And it's a very tiring process of reading a key of a mock test that you have given. So it will take significant amount of time, and that will sort of curtail the amount of mock tests that you're giving in general. But then I think 15 to 16, or up to, some people go up to 20 mock tests for prelims, and then as many tests as you can write for mains is going to be of essence in this paper, right? So validation and all these other things are something that you have to focus on, and then quality over quantity should be the benchmark in general, right? So with that, we'll move to the next reason that I feel hinders success. So not showing sensitivity towards topics that have a high gestation period that take time to build. Okay. Now, I recently met somebody who was asking me how long does it take to read Lakshmikant. He was obviously a beginner, and I told him it took me around 2.5 months to go through that book in its entirety. So that was something that he could not believe, because his expectation was that he had to do it faster. But then, taking a leaf from the last point itself, there is always going to be a trade-off between quality and quantity. Okay, the more number of revisions that you do, the better you will get at that particular subject, and that's how much time it is going to take. Now, a subject like polity or economics is going to take quite some time. Okay, and I think that is why you should pick up those subjects first. Also, at the same time, you should not neglect the subjects that are not much talked about. For example, your essay and your ethics. Okay? You have to have this idea in mind that paper mein questions will be asked. There will be 7 minutes for a 10 marker and 11 minutes for a 15 marker question. No questions asked. This is true for all subjects. So you have to give sufficient amount of time in preparation for every aspect of the syllabus. But then at the same time, don't forget that there is an ROI, return on investment. Agar world history say, if they are asking only 16 questions, but then internal security say 49 questions are coming, then you are the best judge of what you should be studying, which is obviously internal security, right? So focus on the ROI, focus on the PYQs, but don't skip anything just because you don't find that it's important, right? Also, the inner conflict that people face is that there is a tangible progress in GS versus mastering the ambiguity of philosophical subjects. This is true for the essay. Now, these few past years, we are seeing that the essay has become a sort of game changer. For example, in the 2023 attempt, if my marks were even just a little bit, I'm saying below average, I would have had the ranks in top 40s or top 50s. But since my marks were way, way below average, I was in the 153 rank. This time, my marks in essay are again just average. It's 103. If you look at the people in top five, one of them has scored 144 marks. Just look at this gap. Like the essay paper is the first paper. I went to give the exam on the first day. On that day itself, somebody just beat me by 41 marks. Now, all the 8 papers that I'm giving after that is just trying to cover that gap. Think of that disparity in marks that has been created by one paper. मुझे उसने 40 मार्क्स से पहले दिन पे हरा दिया. Now I'm just beating around the bush, just trying to match her level so that I can at least come to the same marks. Interview will come after so many months. That is again unpredictable. But see the disparity in marks and the uncertainty, right? So we can't, ignore these subjects anymore. You have to have a level of sophistication. You have to have a level of competence in these subjects as well. So don't neglect them. Let them take the amount of time that it takes, and then ensure that you have the quality of answers and you have the quality of preparation that you are going. to give in the exam. And this is something that I made a mistake in the second attempt as well. I didn't prepare for my essay paper at all. Like I was not preparing for that paper at all. The only time I wrote an essay was between the gap that I got between the prelims result and the mains papers, and that is one of the biggest mistakes that somebody can make. So ensure that you do that well. Okay. So yeah, we'll move to the next reason. The next reason is not building your own perspective in thinking, and your mentor helped you to understand the exam. Now you have to build on top of that understanding. Okay. So a lot of times in the preparation for many of us, it goes over multiple years. For some lucky few people, it is just the first attempt. But then, uh, see, there is never going to be somebody who is going to completely come inside your head, look at how you are feeling about a subject, see exactly what you are good at, how competent you are at a particular subject, and then tell you exactly, ki, okay, study this thing and practice these many number of tests. It is never going to happen. You are communicating with your mentor. You are only able to give him information which comes through words, and language also has its own limitations, right? So the best judge for your preparation is going to be you always for yourself. Okay, that is not going to change ever. I always think that you should prepare by feel, and that if you feel that you are not particularly good at a subject, you should focus on that subject more. If you read a source and you feel that ये source मेरे लिए अच्छा है, then I think that you should go for that particular source and not what other people are saying, right? So advices and other things and direction has to be taken with a pinch of salt. But if you feel that something is right for you, then that is generally going to be right for you, because you should always be trusting your gut feeling. Okay. So now something that you should always work on is to be able to judge yourself correctly. Okay. Somebody asking, should we disobey toppers? Absolutely. If you feel that you are not being given the right direction, completely go ahead and disobey them. Even me, in fact, for that matter. But then if you feel that some parts of those things are going to be relevant to you, then pick and choose from that as well. Nothing is ever going to be 100% applicable to you. Let me be very clear with that, right? Okay. Now, building your own perspective and moving beyond the traditional things is going to create a differentiation, right? See, in the essay paper, in the ethics paper, GS optional, every paper, originality and creativity is always rewarded. Like, believe me when I say that, if you are able to put in a diagram or a flowchart or a comparison or give a criticism that somehow shows that originality, that new unique perspective, you will be rewarded for it. And you can have my word, take my word for it, right? Because in my optional uh, philosophy, there is a lot of scope to put these kind of things, a lot of scope to think about what different perspectives can come about from a particular philosophy. And there is always a scope to put these things, and which I did. And I feel this year, because I have got 298 marks, which is the highest in philosophy, I have been sufficiently rewarded for that. There can be no other reason, because I did not change my sources. I did not change my answer writing style much. It was just that the value addition and the new perspectives that I put in, both for GS and for optional, have helped me in some manner to perform much better. So your content has to have that level of depth, which you will have to develop with practice. Now, feel free to do that in any manner that you feel is right. Write answers with topper copies, whatever they have written, some new unique perspective that piques your mind. You feel as if ये अच्छा एक नया perspective दिया है. Just pick it up and put it in your own copy and use it wherever you want. If you read a new book, you come across a nice anecdote, something that shows that you have a higher order of thinking, pick that up, use it wherever you find it apt in your essays. न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ रहे हो, कुछ एथिक्स में आ गया, नया एग्जांपल आ गया, ऑलवेज हैव दिस थिंग गोइंग ऑन बिहाइंड योर माइंड कि मैं ये चीज कहाँ यूज कर सकता हूँ, वेयर कैन आई कैपिटलाइज दिस, वेयर कैन आई यूज दिस इन्फॉर्मेशन, वेयर कैन आई पुट दिस कोट इन, कि एग्जामिनर लगे कि यार क्या लिख दिया है. लाइक आई यूज्ड टू हैव दिस इमेजिनरी फ्लैशबैक्स कि आई एम राइटिंग एन आंसर एंड द एग्जामिनर इज रीडिंग दिस एंड बी लाइक कि यार इसको तो आईएएस बनाना ही है इस बार, क्या आंसर लिखा है. लाइक दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ थिंग दैट आई यूज्ड टू इमेजिन इन माय फ्री टाइम. सो दीज काइंड ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन, for if you would like to put it that way, is something that you should be looking at कि यार अपने आंसर में वो that X factor should be there. If it is there or not, that's a different question, but your attempt and your endeavor should be that you are able to differentiating yourself from other aspirants, because you have to beat the competition, right? So Your knowledge is not just going to be tested, your interpretation of the issue is also going to be tested. ऐसे में तो there is so much scope to do that. Like a caterpillar spends its life in the cocoon, but its destiny is to be a butterfly. Now, इसमें 10-12 चीजें आप अपना अपना dimension खोल के you can use, you know, you can put that thing कि cocoon से बाहर निकलना है is coming out of ignorance, cocoon से बाहर निकलना is overcoming the weaknesses and then becoming something that you have the potential to be. So you have so much scope to use your own creativity, and that can only come with if you have built your perspective up to a certain level that you are able to go beyond these, you know, standard books and standard sources, and यही वही ethics का वही case study सब लोग use कर रहे हैं, वही डाल रहे हो आप, तो इससे थोड़ा एक step ऊपर जाओ. And I have always maintained this thing. UPSC has never told you to not use your optional in your GS or your GS in your optional, or don't use quotes from some random books. There is no bound on you. Don't create these artificial barriers based on how coachings evaluate you or whatever comes in the magazine. Feel free to use new knowledge, new quotes, interesting examples, interesting perspectives from all across the board, and just put them in your paper and deliver that content in a manner which shows that you have the understanding of the question and you have delivered content that is unique. So if that is your endeavor, I'm guaranteeing you that you will be able to set yourself apart from other people, right? So like as it mentioned, add nuance, add context, add a new voice, and originality and creativity will always be rewarded. Just remember that, right? So we'll come to the next reason, which is complete focus on weakness and not working on a strength. So this is one of the most important things that you should keep in mind. Uh, if you see my mark sheet, I can prove it to you. Go to each and every single paper. You will either find an improvement in the marks or you will find an equivalence in marks. I have not lost even a single mark in any paper except my personality test, where I have gone down by 5 marks. मेरे last time 195 marks थे, इस बार मेरे 190 है. But in the written paper, I have not gone down a single mark in any subject. I had 120 plus marks in GS2. I had 120 plus marks in GS4. I have been able to maintain that. At the same time, I have been able to improve on other subjects which were my weakness. For example, my optional marks were in the range of 270s. I was able to take them to 298. My other subjects, for example, GS3 was in somewhere in the 80s. उसको मैं 108 पे लेके गया हूँ. essay में I had around 70s, 76 marks, 86 marks that I've taken to 103. So I knew that I had to work on my essay and my optional. ठीक है? I focused extensively on that, but at the same time, I did not lose touch of those two subjects which actually gave me the rank, three subjects for that matter. One is the personality test, one is the GS2 and the GS4 paper. Okay? So when you are practicing and improving on the weak areas, be sure that you are practicing enough for the strengths that you also had, right? I'm reminded of a very interesting example. During the World War II, there was then a study done. So they had these planes come in which were shot at by the other enemies, right? And they were figuring out कि इस plane में what part should be reinforced more so that we don't lose more planes. So there was this plane that was bought in, and it had a lot of shots and bullet holes in the engine area, but no bullet holes in the wings and the body, right? So people were like कि यार इसकी इंजन पे इतने सारे बुलेट्स लगे हैं, we have to reinforce the engine area, right? But then one particular person gave this analogy कि यार this plane is right in front of us, इस पे bullet holes लगे हैं near the engine area, it has not crashed, which means that the parts which have not been affected by bullet holes are the parts that are weaker, because those planes have never returned to us. Those planes have actually crashed, right? So the strengths that you have identified, it's not as if you don't have to reinforce them. There is always a sense in reinforcing those areas, but at the same time, the glaring weaknesses in front of you, those have to be given disproportionately more amount of time. So don't completely neglect the engine because you want to focus on the wings. The entire plane should be in a good condition and should be strong enough to take you across that uh, path of UPSC, right? So don't neglect any subject. Focus on your optional. Focus on the GS equivalently. Like I particularly during the mains preparation divided my day into two halves. One half of the day was spent in GS and one half of the day was spent in optional. And the last 2 hours of the day was spent in optional answer writing and GS answer writing. 1 hour every day I used to practice for both. Okay? So double down on your strengths, identify your edge, and dominate it. but at the same time cover your weaknesses and don't let go of anything in the preparation, because it can so happen that you perform your weakness, for example, was GS1 and you do excellent in that, but जितना मार्क्स कवर करना था उतना मार्क्स अपने ऑप्शन में कम करवा दिया because you didn't focus enough, right? So that is something that we don't want to happen and we should focus on everything. Okay, so we'll move on to the next reason. Yeah, so which is sticking to the templates in answer writing and essays and no innovation and framework. Every top ranker has their own innovations, rankers have originality. Yeah, so this is something that I think happens much more with people who give multiple attempts, bar attempt deke, reading those same keys again and again and trying to become like that answer key itself, right? You sort of lose that originality and that individual touch that you should always have. And I think if people here are preparing our first time attempters or giving the mains this time, you can definitely capitalize a lot on this, because the first few initial attempts are going to be the most original you are going to be, because after a point of time you are just going to be consuming content which is relevant to UPSC. आप बाहर की books नहीं पढ़ोगे, you'll not be reading other authors, you'll be reading particularly fabricated coaching material that has been repeated, things have been repeated in that, facts have been repeated, case studies have been repeated. So you become a model answer template as a person itself, right? So avoid becoming that model answer key as a person. Be you. Uh, have reading, have use social media if you want to. Instagram पे I used to follow a few pages. Just time pass. रात को सोने से पहले देख लो, चार चीजें इंटरेस्टिंग मिल जाएंगी about nature, down to earth का YouTube चैनल है वो. I used to watch a few videos. Cut the clutter, शेखर गुप्ता, World View by सुहासिनी हाइदर, Vantage आप देख सकते हो. There'll be a lot of perspectives, there'll be a lot of opinions. Shekhar Gupta in particular likes to quote a lot of authors. So just make a note of these small things and just use them in the essay. It looks so good. It gives an answer that feel of कि यार this guy is a level apart. He's different from other aspirants. इसके answer में I'm able to see that he's put in a little more effort than the other people, and hence he should be rewarded more than that. That's how I imagine the examiner thinks. But then we don't know. But then I always see that you will be rewarded with that extra thing that you put in, right? So let go of these mechanical frameworks. Just focus on adding new value addition to your answers. Focus on the freshness. Add things that you feel other people won't. If you feel that this particular anecdote suits this place, but it's from a very diverse source, not related to the UPSC or traditional sources, be free. Use that. Definitely, I would say definitely use that thing in particular, because that is something that other people will not be using. Okay, so creativity feels risky versus control feels safe. Risk, take that risk. It will definitely reward you. And then again, multi-dimensional answer writing, when you are used to, like if you see my answer copies, you will find that I used GS2 का knowledge in GS3 paper, GS3 का value addition facts, and GS1 optional का in my ethics, and ethics का मेरे optional में. तो why divide yourself in silos when you can use this knowledge as a whole resource and use it across paper as per your wish. ठीक है, so don't limit yourself. Just be creative. Feel free to take that risk. Go one step ahead. Expand your knowledge. Expand your perspective. Open multiple dimensions. And that is how you will be able to get that 111 mark more in each question than other people. And that is how I think it's to be done, right? So don't go for safe, go for originality. And then I think that it will really reward you, right? So that is something that you should be doing. Okay, so the last and final result, the thing that I would like to mention here is failing on the D-Day. So, no cheeze you did right, and the 10th day you went to the exam center, and then you sat in the paper, and then you're not able to perform. So, what is the use of that, right? So, this thing of performing well on the examination day, I feel is the most important thing ever. In fact, I know people who are not prepared well, but just exam के दिन पे दिमाग सही जगह पे था, confidence था, went and performed, just excelled like anything in the paper. ठीक है? And after that it's just all talk. आके बोलेंगे आपको कि यार मैं तो पढ़ाई भी नहीं की थी, मेरे को फिर भी मार्क्स आ गए, पता नहीं कैसे आ गए. But then they have their dream service and it doesn't matter anymore who is asking you. Nobody cares. ठीक है? Get that service, come out of this exam cycle, and forget about UPSC, and then you have so much more to do in life, right? So focus on delivering on that day. That is going to be the most important thing. I know people who have studied for CSAT, पूरा साल पढ़ा CSAT, but then examination day पे आके they're telling यार हम लोग blank out हो गए. टाइम मैनेजमेंट नहीं हो पाया, पेपर में डर गया मैं, समझ नहीं आ रहा, मैथ्स में गॉट स्टक. सी, nobody will ask you these things. Nobody asked me when I failed prelims for the first time ki what happened. Nobody in fact asked me ki you failed just by 2 marks, what happened wrong. So nobody cares, ठीक है. Everybody is only interested in the final outcome. So focus on delivering that content on that day. Now a few things are very important for this. What is that? पहला चीज तो यार, give your exam at the time when the real exam will come. For example, if your examination is on at 9:30 in the morning, there is no use practicing mock test at 3 a.m. सुबह, ठीक है. A lot of people pull all-nighters because they find that that time is when they are able to study the most, and that makes no sense. Your practice has to be during the examination time, because that is when you have to be used to using your brain the most. Your hands have to be used to be writing for 3 hours non-stop, 6 hours in total for a particular day if you're talking about the mains examination. Elimination, educated guessing, recall, ये सब चीजें comes with practice, and you have to practice using your brain at that point of time in the day. तो सुबह 9:30 को अगर पेपर है, तो मॉक टेस्ट जब सुबह 9:30 को दो, और 2:30 का पेपर है तो 2:30 को ही बैठना पेपर देने, ठीक है. देयर शुड बी नो सरप्राइजेस इन द रियल पेपर. यू are used to using V5 grip wala pilot pen. I use that pen. I will for no reason go in the real mains exam with a uniball just because कि अरे मुझे आज ये pen मिल गया. Don't do that. Like, practice all your mock tests with that particular pen instead also. अगर V5 grip वाला pen if you are using pilot pen, then give all mock tests with that pen. If you are in the habit of attending the paper linearly from question number 1 to 20, then do that in the real paper as well. Just don't start from कि यार I think 15 markers will be more wording. आज मैं question number 11 से start करती हूँ और फिर मैं I'll see what happens. So don't give yourself any scope for mistakes. Don't give yourself any surprises. And then there are a lot of small things that you should take care of. Like, carry a tiffin to the examination center. अगर 2 घंटे का break है बीच में, then don't think यार मैं एग्जामिनेशन सेंटर जाके देख लूंगा, वहां पे आसपास कोई दुकान होगी तो वहां पे I'll sit and have my lunch. No, carry your food with you. Ensure that you have a full stomach before the CSAT or before the second paper in the mains examination. Go to the examination center 1 or 2 days before the exam to see whether you have the right center code or not. There are a lot of Navodaya Vidyalayas, there are a lot of Kendriya Vidyalayas. Don't make that mistake of reaching the examination center wrong on the D-day and then running around here and there. That will just mess up your whole mental makeup, and you will be more anxious and just tired. So take care of these small things that really matter in the preparation. Okay? Multiple revisions karna, train for that pressure. Like, that's why I said in the beginning itself, give a lot of these all India mock tests. इससे होगा क्या? You will be in line with 100 other kids, and then they'll be talking about कि oh I did this, I did that, and you'll be like कि मैंने तो ये लिखा ही नहीं है. And that pressure and that anxiety, you'll be used to going through that process over and over again. ठीक है? So that simulation of giving the examination, standing in the line with your Aadhaar card and your admit card, बीइंग अलर्ट कि सुबह उठ के एग्जामिनेशन के बैग में मेरा आधार कार्ड, मेरा एडमिट कार्ड, मेरा फोटो कॉपी दो, मेरा आईडी, मेरे पेन्स, ये सब, एवरीथिंग शुड बी इन प्लेस, राइट. व्हाट आई एम बेसिकली सेइंग इज प्रिपेयर फॉर द डी डे इटसेल्फ, that you're able to go there and give the examination in a comfortable manner. You have your travel and everything sorted, and there is absolutely no surprises, nothing that will shake you on that day. Okay? So chaos and preparation both go hand in hand. I mean, it's all part of the process, and there is not much to be sacrificed in by not giving mock tests or everything. But then you should be at the top of your game, and by practicing more, practice makes perfect. So I think there are 10 things that I feel like if you can get under control, you'll be avoiding a lot of these pitfalls that most people tend to make. And then I hope that you get success from the other things and the hard work that you put in, right? So that is from my end.